Hey everybody, Sleepy Reader, Damien here. Have I committed myself to a bat lunch every week? I can do whatever I want on this channel, but for now I continue to want to do bat lunches. This one has a guest appearance by Superman Joker? No, by Superman. But mostly I think I'll discuss Batman Eternal. It's a gloomy, wet day here, which living here in the rainy part of Oregon, I get pretty used to rainy days, but it is more of a bummer now that summer's started rolling. My daughter's doing swimming classes, which run rain or shine, in an outdoor pool, so I hope she'll be okay with swimming in the rain today. So, in a way, I feel like I should thoroughly reread this because there's a lot going on in this issue. I thought it was a very good issue. The art fits. You know, Mikhail Janin, an artist who I like quite a bit, who really came into his own, it seems, in Justice League Dark, has his own way of doing things, but it fits in closer with the Jason Fabok and the the Gilliam Marsh kind of art. I think if it were him and Jason Fabok wrote, and maybe Gilliam Marsh just rotating and doing all these issues, that would be really great. And it's scripted by James Tynion, who I kind of have a chip on my shoulder against. I have just felt he was catapulted to near the top of the DC writing pile far too early. And I find a lot of his writing a bit sludgy and poorly paced, or I have in the past. I didn't really notice that here. There was maybe a scene or two that I thought, well, what's the purpose of that? Maybe just one scene. But I thought he did a very good job here, so I have to give him props for a good comic book and for really nailing the various moving pieces that he covered of the story that we've been following all along. There's still some storylines left a little bit hanging, but I feel like he covered just about everything, except for maybe the Spectre story, which I guess that's up to whoever started it. We'll get back to the story about the Spectre and Batwing. That one's really going to be... that one's really hanging out there in the wind. But anyway, I think the cover's by Gilliam Marsh again, doing his modest Kelly Jones take on Batman here. Let's see. Cover Gilliam Marsh and Tomei Moru. I assume that's the colorist. I really like... so they've been doing this kind of spread where they have a double-page spread with a whole picture at the top and then some panels down below as kind of a theme, a visual theme of every issue. And I really like the way Janin handled it by putting everything on the angle, especially because he made his double-page spread came on a scene where people were just standing in a room talking. But he made it very interesting and very dynamic. I mean, it feels like you're zooming into the story, even though people are just standing around talking, and it makes it exciting. So yeah, and back to, because I'm not willing to, after all the various comics I read that I thought were meh by Tynion, I'm not totally ready to give him all the credit. I'm thinking that Janin himself is a very good visual storyteller, and that really lifts up Tynion a bit. But still, a lot of good stuff here. So I'm mean to Tynion. I think I'm jealous of anyone who got an easy way up into or a relatively easy way up into a glamorous career that lots of people would like to have and very few people manage to get into. And those who do usually struggle for years and years to get there. Um, so yeah, like I said, we get quite a bit of Gordon. We get quite a bit. We get Red Robin. We get a little bit of what's her name? The girl in the ghettos. Come on, brain not working. Yeah, Harper Row. And I really like, although they don't directly interact, the interaction between Harper Row and Red Robin. And I feel like I get this sense they would make a good pair. I'd like to see them work on some mysteries together, and there's reasons for that, because Harper's brother is afflicted by this virus that Red Robin is investigating. One kind of clunky moment is Red Robin is going to interrogate Professor Pig, sneaking in through the window, I guess, of the Gotham prison, the jail cells at Gotham Police Central, and then he's kind of interrupted by some computer hacking being done by Harper Row, and so if he ever, and somehow does that electrocute Professor Pig? Now I'm going into spoilery area, and I will spoil this issue all the way to the last page, and there's a big reveal there. So this is a good time to stop the video if you want to read this comic soon and you don't want things spoiled. So anyway, yeah, maybe somehow, I don't know how stopping a computer hacker would electrocute the person that you're interrogating. That's what it looks like is happening with Professor Pig. And next we know Red Robin is flying away from the jail, and he apparently has not interrogated Professor Pig. What was he going to ask Professor Pig about? And was that all just an excuse to make it look like he was doing something while the real plot point that we wanted to put forward was being made? I guess that's it. And I can't really hold that against a writer for doing that, but I kind of got caught for a moment with, wait a minute, what was Professor Pig going to tell him, or what was he going to learn? And okay, here's another I'm going to nitpick at this issue, even though I liked it a lot. So it's really cool that we also got 2 pages of Batgirl and Jason Todd, Red Hood. And I'm looking forward, it looks like they will be teaming up for some more adventures in Latin America, or South America. And I think that's excellent. I'm looking forward to that. And Red Hood is back to looking more like you would want him to look like. But first of all, it says somewhere in Brazil. I'm pretty sure they were in a specific place in Brazil last issue. And this is directly continuing off of that. And what we saw in that issue, so this is more nitpicking about not coordinating between the artists. What we saw in that issue was them in a very sleek metal and steel downtown of some city. I think it was Rio. I'm pretty sure it was supposed to be Rio. 98% sure they said it was Rio. And Rio does have a modern downtown. I've been there. But what we see now is kind of a warehousey, run-down brick building kind of thing, like an older section of New York or something. And maybe Rio has kind of grungy gray areas like that, but it's not what we were shown last issue, and it just seems simple enough. I don't know. Maybe these, it's possible this was actually drawn and written before the previous issue, the ways these things work. But also, Red Hood had arrived in some kind of flying craft. I don't know if it was Starfire's spaceship or something, with his kind of crew. But now he's alone and seems to have no mode of transportation. And Barbara has her motorcycle with her. Did she ride her motorcycle down to Brazil? I mean, I don't know. I'm just picking at it. But there they are on a dark, grungy street. There's no sense of being in Brazil, which, in my memory of when I visited, is a place of bright colors, and it's just, and newer architecture in a lot of places. This just looks like some kind of back alley New York kind of scene. So I feel a little annoyed by that. And while I'm at it, so while I love Mikhail Genin, or love is maybe too strong a word, while I greatly enjoyed and appreciated Mikhail Genin's artwork, I don't know if it was up to the best of his stuff in Justice League Dark, but anyway, the coloring seems wrong to me. There's just too many shades of grayish brown and brownish brown and orangish brown, and however the colorist decided to do it in Photoshop, everything has kind of a muddy affect. All the skies are this kind of muddy, cloudy look, even in Brazil, which one might think would be sunnier. And there's Brazil. I'm stuck on the Brazil thing. And yeah, so it's all these shades of muddiness, from the muddy sky to the muddy building, for instance. And that's throughout this issue. It's a great relief, almost, these scenes of the electricity shooting around. I think there's better ways to show the darkness of Gotham City than just kind of this muddy browns everywhere. This is a daylight scene, right? Obviously a very muddy gray day. You don't want sunny days in, I don't know. It just seems like there's other ways to do it, and I feel like I've seen other colorists do it. The colorist in the main Batman title does an excellent job. This is not I think some of the other colorists we've seen on here would have done a very good job too. And this colorist is named Jeremy Cox, and I think I've seen him elsewhere and maybe liked him, but I just don't like his choices here. It's good for a page or two, like at the opening here, this very gray, muddy thing, and I think the color choices make a lot of the detailed work that Mikhail Genin does, kind of fade into the background and be less noticeable, and accentuates if there's any flaw to Mikhail Genin's artwork, it's got a photographic stillness to it, and I think it's almost waiting for the colorist to liven it up and give it a little more pizzazz. Like here, Batman has just landed on this steel thing on the roof, and he see, I think that's what that little light there is, like that. It's supposed to be the smash of him smashing down on there, but the way it's colored adds to the sense of just a still picture, not a sense of movement. But if you look at this on the same page, panel to panel, Genin does a great job of moving camera angles, getting the emotional intensity where it should be and everything. So he's a great storyteller who needs a little help from the colorist to give us a sense of movement and liveliness, in my opinion. And the movement, like on this page, we're in the prison, and every panel has the same color scheme, and the same lighting, and so there's no sense of the sense of movement from panel to panel is diminished, is dulled. So there I am pretending to be an expert on coloring, which of course I'm not. Although, if I used to, as a kid, I fantasized about being John Buscema or Mike Plug or someone like that, and tried to draw. And now, if I were to fantasize, if I were to follow my fantasies, I think I'd like to be a colorist. I just love what's happening in coloring now. And by any standards, it's sort of like I'm picking away at this on one level, this is amazing coloring, and it's very good, and it doesn't obscure the art the way I've seen some colorists do. But and it's just amazing what they can do with coloring now, and I'm sure it takes a lot of talent to do this. But I still feel the choices made here aren't the best for Mikhail Janin's artwork. Maybe this is a colorist he brought along with him. Maybe it's the same colorist from Justice League Dark. Well, at the back there is. It's also colored by Jeremy Cox. There's a preview, which I haven't read yet, but I've looked over it and it looks great. A preview from Grayson, which is going to be drawn by Mikhail Janin. And there it looks much better. But it's also colored by Jeremy Cox. And I wonder if Jeremy Cox is just, for me, not the right person to do a Gotham City thing. When he doesn't think he's doing Gotham City, when he's not thinking in those terms, I think his coloring serves the art much better. But I'd love to see Janin colored by like Matthew Wilson or someone like that. That would be very interesting. So anyway, there's a very good courtroom scene which makes you feel where Jim Gordon is on trial. The opening of Jim Gordon's trial does a great job of making you feel Jim Gordon's screwed. and a nice little pickup that continues the connection between Lieutenant Baird and Vicky Vale. A great scene between Alfred and his daughter, although there we kind of recapitulate some stuff we've already seen in other issues. And along the lines of thinking of like the artist didn't do enough work to make us feel like we're in Brazil, here I don't feel like he's done enough work to make us feel like we're in the kitchen of one of the richest men in the United States. Now, granted, he probably doesn't go in the kitchen much. Alfred spends his time in the kitchen. But that looks like your standard kind of semi-luxury kitchen in a fairly expensive upper-middle-class house. Now, I'm really being unfair there, because in the big rush to put out a comic book on this weekly basis, how much time should I expect the artist to spend on the kitchen? But it just, as I went through, it jumped out at me. It's such a very specific looking kitchen, but it looks very specific to something you would see at a slightly high-end house, but not a mansion. So, I don't know. It could be argued all sorts of ways, like Bruce Wayne is not the kind of person to care about having the fanciest kitchen. You could argue there's many kitchens in the mansion, ones they use for making small meals and ones when they're having a giant banquet there, etc., etc. Realistically, such a big mansion probably needs more servants than just Alfred. But anyway, I love the unveiling of the scene with Alfred where Red Robin, Tim comes to visit, and the encounter with his daughter and everything. It's all really well done. And so is the scene. I guess it's boring going from scene to scene because I'm mostly doing this for people who have read this already or don't plan to read it. But I love the scene. So I love most of these scenes. The scene where they meet up with Batman and tell him what their plan is. The plan is clever, a great surprise that I wasn't expecting. I'm really looking forward to see that unfold. And although I complained about the art or the coloring in the prison, and here's my big spoil of the end, the revelation of the return of James Gordon Jr., this is great timing. As if things aren't bad enough for the Gordon family here's this guy. And apparently he's well connected in the prison and can get in and out of it. So I'm really looking forward to what's going to happen there with James and his father. His father doesn't want to leave the prison. He wants, and maybe that was the purpose of the little encounter with the Batman in disguise as a prison guard earlier on, to establish that Gordon firmly is interested in continuing, letting the wheels of justice do their work, and staying in prison and continuing the trial, not trying to escape, etc. Although you would think he might want his trial postponed so that Batman can gather evidence. You don't rush into a trial before you've gathered all your evidence, do you? But sticking to the reality of things like that would make less good of a story. So my first thought is James will help him escape prison. My second thought is maybe he'll try to torment Gordon in prison. But maybe he's after something else. I'm looking forward to being kind of surprised. Marketing-wise, this is very effective, and I feel DC doesn't do the right marketing, but putting this preview of Grayson in this issue with the very good art by Mikel Janin and the art looking so good in Grayson is definitely going to get me to pick up issue 1 of Grayson, particularly because Grayson is a $2.99 book. But I'm definitely going to give it a shot, even though I heard bad things about the final issue of Nightwing, which was pretty much the first issue of Grayson, from what I hear. So, yeah, excellent issue all in all. I know there were some other little glitches that as I was reading, I was saying, okay, well, that was already like some timing things between other issues, and now I can't remember what they were. So one of the this was, as I talk about it and realize how good it was and how many of the plot elements were done really well and covered in this issue, makes me want more Tinian, preferably with a really good artist like Mikel Janin, who can give a lot of added value to the storytelling. So I hope Tinian has some more issues coming up, because I feel like he's on a roll. He is, along with Snyder, the co-creator of the overall story, so he may be much more invested in this story and in its mechanics and its in what is important to it than people like Tim Seeley and John Layman and Ray Fox, who in a sense are more hired guns, scripters. People come in to fill out the scripts. And I'm worrying, maybe it was Tim Seeley most of all, but I'm worrying that in general they're, because Tim Seeley, I believe, did the last issue, which just seemed a bit of a mess. I'm worried because we kind of have these layers of writers, the showrunners, and then the other writers, that you don't have all the writers equally invested. But James Tinian is invested, and I think he's doing some of the best work he's ever done here. So here's to more to James Tinian. And it might be, although he's done his rookie work in the spotlight in some of the best-selling comics at DC, that now he has started to gain the chops and is starting to really click as a comic book writer. Can only hope. What else? I don't want to stop talking about this. I just really enjoyed this issue. I wish I could think of those other little time glitches that I noticed. But, what the heck. Yeah, so great issue. If you're thinking about whether or not you'll get the trades because you haven't jumped on this, of course I've just been spoiling things, so maybe those people aren't watching now. But anyway, this increases my confidence that overall this is going to be a good story. I just thought I'd also mention Adventures of Superman, which is one of my favorite DC books because it's always out of continuity Superman stories, and Superman just seems to be better that way, treated as more of a myth of himself than an ongoing continuity filled character. And this certainly fit that bill of out of continuity, and some people have argued out of character. So it has Superman meeting the Joker, and most of this... So it's a 20-page story. There's 30 pages total in here, and then there's another story. But I'm going to focus on the Joker one. It has this great artwork by Jock. I really like the way Jock does Superman and plays with the shadows on him and his positioning. And Jock, the artist, had to work with a script that just had two characters standing and talking. And he did some great stuff with that. So we get a version of the Joker who is kind of your just anarchist madman who doesn't... He himself says he doesn't really know what he wants, and he hasn't made a full plan, or so he claims. And he's planted bombs around Metropolis just because he wants to meet Superman and, I guess, screw with his head. And he doesn't succeed. Superman's really been ahead of him in every step, as we find out eventually. What to say about this without... Because I'll put a link to it below. Wednesday Serial, Matt did a great video on it where he was really disappointed with this. And he had good reasons. And so his issues with this now loom kind of large in my head. But my original take on it was like one of those two-actor plays that you see sometimes that's kind of abstract, probably doesn't have any set dressing or anything, or just a few chairs, and two characters kind of talk, and things are revealed, and their relationship flips back and forth, and is unwound that way. And I really enjoyed it as that kind of abstract thing. And Jock's artwork was so good, I didn't realize we were just sitting around, basically in a static position. And, So, and then at the end, what bothered Matt was you have this Superman the idea that Superman is purposefully undefined and unpredictable in his moral behavior. And that seemed, and as I say it out loud, I agree with him, that goes against generally of what we think of Superman. We could say this is also early in Superman's career, and he's going to develop a moral code. But an interesting thing, and I'm spoiling it some more, but linking back to Batman, it stops being like one of those static two-man plays at the end, where Superman pays a visit to Batman in his cave, and they have a little bit of a confrontation, where it appears that Batman could have stopped the Joker at any time from going to Metropolis, but he wanted to see how Superman would handle the Joker. And I actually had more trouble with that. If Batman is always on top of the Joker and can control his actions, could have stopped him from going to Metropolis, then the Joker's not that big of a threat to Batman. Whereas, as we've seen the Joker recently and at other times, when he's been done well, he is the wild card. He's the most hard for Batman to get a beat on and to win against. It's kind of presented here like Batman or Superman at any time they want can get Joker into prison, lock him down, keep him from having trouble. Instead, Superman's kind of just sent him back to Gotham, if I understand correctly, although I guess we do see him coming out of the building with the police there. So for me, this was not... I was more upset by the Batman and Joker portrayals here than Superman. Maybe because I've come to expect from this magazine a different version of Superman in every story. And all I knew about the writer Landis, Max Landis, was that he was a Hollywood guy. So I figured he had Man of Steel, the most recent Superman movie, in his mind most of all, where Superman does kill, and where it's very much the beginning of Superman's career. But I didn't like the idea here that Joker is kind of like one of Batman's pets that he unleashed on Metropolis. And I also don't believe that the Joker would have no other plan. Although the idea is this is early days for the Joker's a brand new villain and Superman's a brand new villain. But the Joker seems ultimately kind of just a fool. And easily defeated by Superman, and then easily caught by the cops, I guess. You could argue that in fact he's going to escape a few minutes later, and Joker planned all this because for his next attack on Superman, it was just his test or his probe. But yeah. So I didn't think that critically about it, though, until after Matt's video. I did enjoy it. I think this is especially because they are a very worthwhile issue to get. And there's a fun little fluff story at the end called The Coming of Sugar and Spike. And Sugar and Spike, I know, were a kids' cartoony comedy comic that once upon a time DC used to have, probably dating back to the 50s, I'm guessing, and appearing for a while in the 60s before superheroes completely took back comics. And I know nothing about what they were like. I think I've seen a cover or two. But they were two kids who got into a lot of trouble. And here they are, kids who are the children of scientists who work at Star Labs. And it's just a fun little romp with, and they're also the neighbors of Clark Kent in his apartment building, and Star Labs is conveniently across the street, and he is babysitting for them, and they get involved with the Atomic Skull, trying to steal something from Star Labs, and you get some fun visuals. This thing creates little portals that people can end up going through. I always want to explore portals more. So anyway, yeah, I'm straying further away from the Bat. But with those two books, I felt like it was a fun, engaging week as far as Batman goes. Hearing things about the wrap-up of Zero Year, I think there's one more issue to go. It sounds like the last two issues have been quite good. I had decided that with Scott Snyder, for most things he does, I want to wait for the trade, so I stopped reading Batman just before Zero Year began, and I feel like that was probably a good decision. That boy, I've talked a long time, but I feel like that. I just noticed the clock on my iPad. I feel like that was a good decision because, from what everyone said, it seems like it's been a frustrating issue-to-issue experience. So I will be, in another few months, probably picking up either the 2 volumes, or if they put out a single volume of Year Zero, picking those up and reading those. And I'm kind of getting more excited about it now that it's coming to an end, and I'm hearing some good things about what's going on in it towards the end. So I hope you're all having a good week of comics.